This video has kindly been sponsored by Spitch. Spitch is a fantasy football app where you can test your management skills against others and win real prizes. Create a lineup within the budget every match day and score points powered by Opta Stats. During the creation of your lineup, make various tactical decisions like picking your captain and choosing your formation. Managers then with the most points enter the win zone and win real prizes. It's completely free to download and there's some free tournaments to enter as well, so give it a try using the link in the description box below. Get registered and start building your perfect 11 for the upcoming match day. Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking to double game week 36, let's see how the side performed in the previous game week. It was a decent start, with the heavily captained Mo Salah against Newcastle only managing a 1-point appearance off the bench. The reason I say this as a good thing is because I didn't captain the Egyptian, and because he was last week's most popular captain choice, taking him to around 140% effective ownership, any points from him would have actually been detrimental to my ranking. In simple terms, because I didn't captain Mo Salah, the less points he scored the better, even despite owning him, and therefore a 1-pointer from the bench was the perfect result. Frustratingly, Alexander-Arnold did miss out on that clean sheet, but my differential Joel Matip continues to be a very shrewd purchase so far, with 3 clean sheets in 3 since buying him. He's also very conveniently getting rested in other competitions, therefore giving him a better chance to continue getting starts in the league. With Trent missing out, Armando Broja came in off my bench for a rather predictable 1-pointer, and his benching in that game wasn't too much of a surprise. Sadly, Matip's clean sheet was the only return from my defence last week, and I mentioned in my last video that I'd be relying heavily on the Wolves defence in Game Week 35 with both Sarr and Cody at home to Brighton. Wolves have been so poor in recent weeks, and they shipped 3 goals in that lacklustre home defeat. What disappointing signings they've been since the wildcard in Game Week 26. Speaking of disappointing signings, my free transfer in of Coutinho didn't quite live up to expectation, with both him and Jacob Ramsey blanking in that plum home fixture against relegated Norwich. A really poor start for Coutinho on his return to my team, but Villa do now have back-to-back double game weeks, so hopefully he can pick up some points in those. So, without much to shout about in Game Week 35 at this point, yet again it came down to Tottenham Hotspur to save the day, just like they had done in Game Weeks 30, 31 and 32. The Kane and Son double-up delivered a large majority of my points against Leicester last week, and transformed a poor week into a pretty good one. Although that Tottenham performance did rescue my game week, it was somewhat slightly bittersweet, just because once again Heung-min Son completely outshined Harry Kane, and because once again I opted to give Harry Kane the armband, and that resulted in a very big swing of points. Since investing in Harry Kane in Game Week 31, he's managed just the 1 goal while Son has scored 6. And on the 2 occasions I've chosen to captain Kane for 10 and 6 points respectively, Son has scored 21 and 19 in those game weeks. Gigantic swings. So it does leave me thinking that had I not brought in Harry Kane, I'd have then naturally captained Son in those weeks, and I'd therefore be sitting in a much better position. Of course, that's all hindsight now though, and there's no one to blame but myself for not entrusting Son Heung-min with the armband regardless. It is frustrating, but ultimately I can't complain too much. It was a game week where it was certainly better to own Son than not, and I'm sure the game week was a lot more painful for those that didn't own the South Korean at all. So for Game Week 35, my team scored 52. Nothing special, but a respectable score, and enough to give me a small green arrow. Of course, with Son's monster 19-pointer, I would have expected a bigger jump in the rankings. However, the problem here was the fact that both of his goals were assisted by the quite popular Kulusevski, and that didn't help matters. I moved up 2,000 places from 28,000 to 26, and with 3 game weeks left, a chance of beating my personal best rank of 22k is still within reach. But of course with no chips left, that is going to be difficult. Let's move on to the big double game week 36 now, look at how my team currently lines up, and then talk about some potential transfer moves. Looking at my current setup for the double game week, the team was looking in okay shape, with all of my starting 11 at least having 2 fixtures. That was, however, until Jacob Ramsey picked up an injury in training right as I was making this video, and frustratingly, he now looks to be out for Villa's better fixture of their double against Burnley. It's not clear yet just how long he'll be out for, and Aston Villa do have a further double game week in 37, so Ramsey was very much in my team's plans. If I am to replace him directly this week, then Everton's Anthony Gordon at around the same price looks to be the obvious budget replacement. Gordon too has back-to-back double game weeks now, and Everton have it all to play for in their quest for Premier League survival. The problem is that I didn't want to have to make a transfer here, because undoubtedly the biggest weak link of my starting 11 is Connor Cody, with Wolves in such poor form at the moment and facing two horrendous fixtures for their double game week against Chelsea and Man City, and that's where I wanted to focus my transfer activity. Looking at my side for this week, perhaps the biggest miss of all is of course Manchester City players. And heading into this double game week with no Man City, who face Newcastle and Wolves, is definitely a big concern. Especially considering that for the long term now, they have no Champions League final to worry about and can therefore put all their focus into the league. There is one way to ultimately solve a lot of these problems I've discussed: to sell Connor Cody, sell Jacob Ramsey, and also bring in some Man City coverage. But all of that would involve downgrading Harry Kane this week, and that's one move I'm weighing up before the deadline. By downgrading Harry Kane to Arsenal's Nketiah, that would then allow me to upgrade Cody and Ramsey to Cancelo and Riyad Mahrez for a -8. It would be a very aggressive move, and not particularly my playstyle, so it's unlikely, but certainly something in consideration. It is worth remembering though that Harry Kane himself does have a double game week as well this week, albeit a fairly difficult one, but he then wraps up the season against Burnley and Norwich. So taking him out now for a -8 may be a bit too drastic, and at least with Kane I know he's guaranteed of starts. The second transfer route is to be a lot more conservative and reluctantly ignore Man City options altogether. That basically means sticking by Kane for the remainder of the season now, and instead simply replacing Cody or Ramsey directly. I've already mentioned Anthony Gordon looking a useful replacement for Jacob Ramsey, but to replace Connor Cody with a budget defender, I'll essentially be looking for a defender who doubles this game week, but also provides me with a useful option for the two remaining game weeks as well. Leicester's Wesley Fofana comes into consideration with back-to-back double game weeks, and then a decent home fixture against Southampton in the final game week of the season. However, the Foxes' defence has been a minefield for rotation recently, so I am a bit reluctant to go there. For budget defenders elsewhere, it's the Tottenham defence I'm looking at, and also at a budget 4.3 million, Sessegnon could be a very decent differential shout, with Reguilon still remaining out injured. Granted, defensively his double for game week 36 isn't the best, but he would still hopefully offer some decent attacking threat in comparison to Connor Cody. Tottenham's defensive numbers still remain fairly decent under Antonio Conte, and they do then notably face Burnley and Norwich in the final two game weeks, so two very good chances for clean sheets there. I guess like Wesley Fofana, Sessegnon isn't guaranteed to start all these games, so perhaps the likes of Romero, Emerson or Ben Davies could be more reliable here. On my bench this week, it's a bench that's extremely threadbare, and with Broja being underwhelming for months now, and for not even being guaranteed to start his single game week fixture against Brentford, he's a player I want to avoid starting this week if possible. It's likely I'd prefer taking a hit to replace Jacob Ramsey here rather than having to start Broja. Jose Sarr is currently a big waste of finances on my bench, and that's still fallout from the wildcard and bench boost plan in game week 26. By selling Jose Sarr to a budget 3.9 million goalkeeper this week, that does give me just enough cash to upgrade Connor Cody to Aymeric Laporte for a -4, giving me at least some Man City coverage for this Man City double game week. That move, however, doesn't solve my new Jacob Ramsey problem, and it also means not having Jose Sarr for game week 37, with a decent home fixture against Norwich, a game that he could be a decent differential for. For the captaincy in this double game week, with no Man City players currently in my squad, for me it's only going to be between two players, with Mo Salah and Son Heung-min the strong considerations. I think both Alexander-Arnold and Saka are also both very viable shouts this week, but I'm not convinced on them enough personally to give them the nod over Son or Salah, the two most explosive players in my squad. For now, the armband still sits with Mo Salah, and although not guaranteed, that's where I expect it to be come the deadline. In general, captaining Salah in a double game week always feels a fairly straightforward play, but the big factor for me here is of course the fact he was rested in Liverpool's previous Premier League fixture. This therefore gives me a lot more confidence in him starting both of these games, and therefore a very good probability of some captaincy returns. With all that said, Son Heung-min is in the back of my mind as a more differential captain. Granted, the two fixtures of his double against Liverpool and Arsenal aren't great on paper, but I do feel they're two games that could suit Son and Tottenham's counter-attacking style. There should be plenty of space in these two games for Son to get in behind, and it's worth noting that Son did score in both of these reverse fixtures earlier this season. Given his incredible form at the moment and his utterly superb finishing, Son doesn't need many chances for a big haul, so he could be an outside bet for me to fire up the rankings. So that's all my thoughts regarding my team heading into Game Week 36. There's a lot of moves in consideration this week, And although no transfers have been made yet, as always you can check out my final team, transfers and captaincy over on the FPL TV Twitter page shortly before the game week deadline. The prospect of going into this game week with no Man City players is of course a scary one, and that's something I may have to rectify this week. However, with no chips left at my disposal, I've got to as well consider the strength of my team for game weeks 37 and 38 as well, and that's where selling Kane may not be beneficial. Good luck to you all for game week 36, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.